Hello guys and welcome to the Russian Football News Predictions League Round 24 preview. Now, we've just come off the back of an international break. Russia, unfortunately, were, I wouldn't quite say humiliated, but were put in their place by two very, very good sides in Brazil and France. So, unfortunately, what's gone has gone. But we move forward, we look on to this weekend's Russian Premier League action. A few interesting little headlines. Just a snippet. Amkar, first game up. Amkar at home, apparently, to Lokomotiv Moscow. Now, their all-weather pitch is not able to stand up to the conditions that Perm has been through, which, quite frankly, I think is a disgrace. If they cannot look after their pitch, then they ought to be punished for it in some way. Now, you can say about the cold temperatures all you like. My local side, FC Tyumen, have the same type of pitch. With a far lower budget than Amkar's, and they managed to put games on all through the winter. There are ways of looking after an all-weather pitch to ensure that the cold doesn't get to it. A cover is one of them. But anyhow, the point is they're not playing at home. They're not playing in Perm. They can't play in Ufa either because Ufa are playing at home as well this weekend. So they are going to be playing at Lokomotiv Stadium. And they have struck a deal whereby they will get the they will get the bulk of the proceeds as if they were the home side without incurring any extra cost. So it's almost win-win for them. They're probably looking at this game thinking Loco are already a very good side. So are we really going to lose anything by playing a nominal home game away from home in Moscow? Anyhow, that is the first game. So let's crack on. Previews. So now that Lokomotiv at home, I think it's an easy one to call. I think Loco will win this one. Of course, they don't have the European distractions. They're not in the Russian Cup anymore. And realistically, they need, I would say, 2 more wins. And that would as good as guarantee them the title. So anyhow, that's what we're looking at. Don't forget they have a game in hand as well. That will come in about 3 weeks' time. But anyhow, this game, well, let's just call it what it is. It's at home to Amkar. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Lokomotiv. This shouldn't have too much trouble. Amkar in fairly dire form, as they have been for quite some time now. Right, second up. We have Akhmat Grozny at home to SKA Khabarovsk. Now, let me just dig this one up. I've got my notes ready somewhere, but they've messed around a bit. What have they done? There we go. Well, SKA, they've been down for some time in one sense. The bottom of the table, they've basically got all the worst records you don't want. They're bottom of the table, least points, most goals conceded. Amkar have scored fewer goals than them, so at least they have that to go for in their favour. But away from home, they're just so utterly incapable of getting that result. Now, it doesn't mean to say that they've been that far away from it. Away to Spartak Moscow, they held firm. Their defence was solid. I don't think there's any reason why they should be expected to try and play attacking, expansive football away from home. They played within their means, and Spartak relied on a fantastic free kick from Fernando a couple of weeks back, I think it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago. The fact remains, though, they still haven't won away from home. Only club not to do so. Iron Rune scored 3 goals away from home as well. Akhmat are starting to get a bit nervous, I would say. They are only 2 places above the relegation playoff places, only 3 points ahead of Anji. So, pressure's on. But I cannot see anything other than a win for Akhmat here. They do still have some match winners like Leo Jabba. Bernard Baruch has been disappointing for the last year, 18 months actually. But the fact is they do still have players like that who can win a game. I don't expect it to be huge, but I'm going to go for 2-0 I take that back. I'm going to go for 1-0, simply because SKA are, if anything else, they are dogged and determined. So I'm going for 1-0 to Akhmat Grozny. Okay, then we have Dynamo Moscow. This is all on Saturday, by the way. Dynamo Moscow at home to Arsenal Tula. Well, Arsenal are having a very, very good brief run of form at the moment. They're up to 7th in the table. And they have, of course, Artem Dzyuba on loan. He's scored 3 or 4 goals now, I think it is. He's assisted once or twice even. Ivan Novoseltsev is busy on Instagram, so forget he's even joined them on loan. But the fact is, they are on the up. Dynamo Moscow, well, they're out of the relegation playoff zone. But problem for them, like many clubs, is away from. They've only won once away from home all season. Arsenal Tula, they're fairly balanced, to be fair, but they don't have many goals involved in their home games. They've only conceded 8 goals, which Lokomotiv, CSKA and Zenit, Rostov and Dynamo have conceded fewer, but nobody's conceded more than 2 goals fewer, so they're doing pretty well. However, they've only scored 10. So, what do we expect here? Well, if I'm being... it's a tough one to call, really. I'm tempted for this to be a draw, because Dynamo Moscow at home, they're fairly resilient side. I'm going to go for 1-1. That's what my gut's telling me. All right, moving on. Let's get up to the next one. Spartak at home to Tosno. Now, really, Spartak should have no problem at all. But we said this when they played SKA Khabarovsk at home, and SKA did cause them problems, not in the threatening sense, but in the frustration sense. They just couldn't get through for large parts of the game. Tosno, I don't think, have that same resilience. I know it's going to sound odd, even though they are 2 places higher than SKA Khabarovsk, almost double the number of points. But Tosno, they're not bad away from home. You can't take that away from them. They have conceded 20, though. So, Spartak, well, we know what their threat is. They've won more games than anyone else at home. They've scored more goals than anyone else at home. So, to look beyond Spartak would be very bold indeed. So what do we see happening here? It's got to be a Spartak win, hasn't it, really? I'm going to go for 2-0. I don't think it's, again, high scoring. Spartak can struggle against the lower sides, so I'm going to go for 2-0. I'm not going to push the boat up too much there. Okay, and then moving on to Sunday. And I will be in Yekaterinburg. Now, this is the other headline I wanted to mention. The World Cup stadia that have been built or refurbished, a lot of them are starting to have their test matches, and Yekaterinburg will host the first game in the remodeled Centralny Stadium. Ural against Rubin Kazan. Now, this is quite a tricky one to call, because Ural have been on a dreadful run of form. They did win last time out 3-0 away in Khabarovsk, which is a fantastic result for anybody, yet alone a side low on cutting edge, to be quite frank, like Ural. However, Othman El Kabir, I always get his name slightly wrong, so apologies if I've mispronounced it. He looks a very useful player. Georgi Chanturia is back towards near match fitness, so the game changers are coming back for Ural. Eric Bitfalvi's been on poor form since the winter break, though, and that concerns me, because he really was the talisman for the first part of the season. Vladimir Ilyin has scored a few, though, so Rubin, well, we know Rubin are a tough side to beat. This is the definitive mid-table clash, 1 point separating the two. Ural have only lost twice at home, so they've got that in their favour, but this is going into the World Cup Stadium. It is going to be sold out, and that's a very unusual experience for Ural, to be quite frank with you, because it's usually around 3,000 or 4,000 in a very open stadium that's not conducive to atmosphere. This will be totally different. There will be 30,000 fans there. So will that affect how they play? I think it probably will, if I'm honest. The question is how much. So let's just skip ahead to Ural. There we go. Rubin, well, look, let's be honest. Goran Berdiev has not quite had the mercurial touch that we thought he would do, but he is gutting the squad. He's freshening it up. It's now, I believe, only 21 or 22 in the first team squad. The players that are there are much hungrier, and the last time out against Spartak Moscow, okay, yes, they did lose to Spartak, but they showed a bit of threat. So I think this could be quite an open game. I'm biased a little bit towards Ural, of course, but I actually do think this will be one of the games to watch, because there's a reasonable amount on this. Either side loses, and they bizarre as it sounds, they could start getting dragged back towards the relegation fight again. I don't expect either to get relegated, but you don't want that pressure on you with 3-4 games to go in the season. I just have a feeling that Oral are going to be boosted by the atmosphere. It could go one of two ways. Of course, the pressure could build upon them, but after that win away from home, Ilian scoring twice, El Kabir's getting his first goal for the club. I'm going for a home win here. And you'll accuse me of bias, and you probably will be slightly right, but I actually genuinely do think there are signs there. I think there'll be goals in this, so I'm going to go for 2-1. Ruslan Kamblov is a question mark for Urbin as well, so that's a minor added factor. Anyhow, that's what we have. Okay, moving on to Ufa at home to Zenit. Well, again, a very hard one to call. Zenit have been on absolutely appalling form away from home. I believe it's something like 7 games. They haven't even won in the last 7 away games. They've had the most 0-0 draws in the entire league. Zenit have drawn 0-0 the last 3 games. They started to look hard to see. It's starting to get hard to see how Zenit are going to resurrect their season, if at all, because at the moment they're in 5th. Now, mathematically, they could even be caught by Ufa, but I don't expect that. There's a 5-point gap they have down to 6th. But the pressure's on. If they don't get Champions League yet again, then they're in serious trouble. They really are. Ufa at home are very strong. They've won 7 of their 11 games at home. Only Spartak have won more at home. It's very, very tempting to go for an Ufa win in this one, but I don't know. I'm really torn on this one, purely because I'm that torn. I think I'm going to have to. I think I'm going to have to go for a draw. I cannot see them getting past. I'm going to go for 1-1 just to be on the safe side, because they really ought to be scoring more. I can't believe I'll have yet another 0-0. They could do. We never know. But I'm going to go for 1-1. I think they will score, but I just don't think they've got the confidence, and I don't have the fluidity under Mancini at the moment. Okay, last 2 games then. Sunday evening, Krasnodar at home to Anzhi. I wouldn't quite call it a derby, but at least it's a Caucasus derby, if you like. Now, last time out, Krasnodar were at home to Ufa, and Ufa this is where they come out strong. They contained. And Ufa have not been great away from home this season. That was only the 2nd win away from home. And, in Krasnodar, it can be an intimidating place to go. Brand spanking new stadium, a lot of fans in the ground. But Krasnodar couldn't find a way through. So, again, the pressure is on. I mean, how many times have we said this about strong sides at the top end of the table? However, they are facing Anzhi. Anzhi they permanently live with pressures of their own. Anzhi last time out, they did win 2-0 at home to Tosnot, and that was just, you can't overstate how important that was. That win took them out of the automatic relegation zone. However, away from home, they're dreadful. They have conceded the most goals on the road, 24 goals conceded in just 11 games. They've only won once away from home. I really do think Krasnodar are going to win this one, simply because they know Zenit's got a challenge away from home. A win for Krasnodar really does put them in a very strong driving seat for at least guaranteeing Europa League as a bare minimum. And if they win and Zenit drop points this weekend, I think they would look pretty strong for that. So I'm going to go for Krasnodar win. Scoreline, well, I think Krasnodar have potential to put a few past them. I'm going to go for 3-0. It might be a little bit ambitious, because Anzhi, despite these statistics, they are a side that have better potential to win than you would have said in previous season. But anyhow, that's what I'm going for. And then finally, we have, if I can just find it, there we go, Rostov at home to Tiska. Now, Tiska, of course, they have Europa League quarter-final coming up a few days later, away in London to Arsenal. So they've got that on their mind. So there'll be a bit of rotation, a bit of caution perhaps. They might see a few of the younger players like Kuchayev, Jamil Letdinov may play, who knows. So I'm going to go for a draw in this one. I'm going to go for 1-1 just to hedge my bets. It may end up being 0-0, but I'm going to go for 1-1. Anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. You know what to do. Head to our Facebook page, so predictions in there. Good luck, and I'll see you next week.